Every decision you make begins inside your mind first. The way you react to stress, handle emotions, build habits, stay focused, and talk to yourself quietly shapes the direction of your life every single day. Most people never stop to understand why they think the way they do. They repeat the same mental patterns for years without realizing their brain has been trained through repetition, experience, and daily behavior. This audiobook will help you understand what is really happening inside your mind during moments of fear, anger, distraction, self-doubt, and emotional pressure. You will discover why bad habits become automatic, why focus disappears so easily, and why certain thoughts continue repeating inside your head even when they hurt you. More importantly, you will learn how to take control of those patterns and reshape the way your mind works. You will hear practical lessons that can help you stay calmer, think more clearly, improve your memory, strengthen your discipline, and protect your mental health in a world full of noise and pressure. These ideas are simple, real, and deeply connected to everyday life. By the end of this audiobook, you may begin seeing yourself differently. You may finally understand that your mind is not your enemy. It is a tool that can either build your future or quietly destroy your peace, depending on how you train it every day. Chapter 1. Understand how your brain shapes every daily decision you make. Every single day, your brain is making decisions before you even realize it. From the moment your eyes open in the morning, your mind begins to guide your actions, your emotions, your attention, and your behavior. The way you think when you wake up affects the way you speak to people. The thoughts you repeat during the day affect the choices you make at night. Many people believe they are fully in control of their decisions, but most of the time they are reacting automatically based on habits, emotions, fears, and past experiences stored deep inside the mind. This is why two people can face the exact same situation and respond completely differently. One person becomes angry and loses control, while the other stays calm and focused. One person quits when life becomes difficult, while another keeps moving forward with patience and discipline. The difference is not luck. The difference is how the brain has been trained over time. Your brain is always learning. Every thought, every action, every repeated emotion creates patterns. These patterns slowly become automatic behaviors. When a person complains every day, the brain becomes skilled at negativity. When a person constantly avoids difficult tasks, the brain becomes comfortable with procrastination. When a person trains themselves to stay calm during pressure, the brain slowly adapts to patience and emotional strength. The human mind does not stay still. It changes based on repetition. This is one of the most important truths you can understand about yourself. The brain becomes what you repeatedly practice. If you practice fear, your mind becomes fearful. If you practice discipline, your mind becomes disciplined. If you practice focus, your mind becomes sharper and stronger over time. Most people never stop to examine their thinking. They spend years reacting emotionally without understanding why. They become trapped inside mental habits that quietly control their entire lives. A small criticism ruins their mood for the entire day. One failure convinces them they are incapable. One uncomfortable moment causes them to avoid challenges completely. They believe life is controlling them, when in reality, their own mind is controlling their responses. Awareness changes everything. The moment you begin observing your thoughts carefully, you start gaining power over your decisions. You begin noticing the patterns that once controlled you automatically. You recognize how quickly your mind creates excuses when work becomes difficult. You notice how your emotions try to influence your behavior during stressful moments. You start seeing how often your decisions are based on comfort instead of wisdom. The brain always searches for efficiency. It wants to conserve energy whenever possible. This is why habits become automatic. The mind prefers familiar actions because they require less effort. This is useful when building positive routines, but dangerous when negative patterns take control. A person who constantly scrolls through distractions trains the brain to avoid deep focus. A person who constantly seeks comfort trains the brain to avoid growth. Over time, these patterns become stronger and harder to break. Many people think discipline is about forcing yourself to suffer. In reality, discipline is training the brain to stop obeying every temporary feeling. Your emotions change constantly. Your brain can feel motivated 1 hour and exhausted the next. If your decisions are controlled only by emotions, your life becomes unstable. Strong people understand this clearly. They do not wait for motivation before taking action. They train themselves to act based on values and long-term goals instead of temporary moods. Think about how often your brain tries to protect you from discomfort. You sit down to work and suddenly feel the urge to check your phone. You decide to improve your health, and suddenly your brain starts offering excuses to delay exercise until tomorrow. You want to speak confidently, but fear creates hesitation inside your mind. The brain naturally avoids uncertainty because uncertainty feels risky. This survival system once protected human beings from danger, but in modern life it often prevents growth. Growth requires discomfort. Learning new skills feels uncomfortable because the brain prefers familiar patterns. Honest conversations feel uncomfortable because the mind fears rejection. Taking responsibility feels uncomfortable because excuses are easier. But every time you face discomfort with awareness, you teach the brain a new lesson. You prove to yourself that difficulty is not danger. You slowly become mentally stronger. People often underestimate the importance of attention. Your attention shapes your reality. Whatever you focus on repeatedly becomes emotionally powerful in your mind. If you constantly focus on problems, your stress increases. If you constantly focus on what other people think, your confidence weakens. If you constantly focus on improvement, your mind begins searching for growth opportunities. Modern life constantly attacks your attention. Notifications, advertisement, endless entertainment, and social comparison train the brain to become restless. Many people cannot sit quietly for even a few minutes without reaching for stimulation. This weakens mental control over time. A distracted brain struggles to think deeply. A distracted brain becomes emotionally reactive. A distracted brain loses the ability to focus on meaningful goals. Protecting your attention is one of the most important forms of self-respect. When you control your focus, you control the direction of your mind. A person who can focus deeply develops stronger thinking, better emotional control, and greater discipline. Focus is not only about productivity. Focus is about mental strength. The quality of your decisions depends heavily on the quality of your thinking. Poor decisions often come from emotional reactions instead of calm reflection. When people feel angry, they say things they regret. When they feel insecure, they seek approval from the wrong people. When they feel afraid, they avoid opportunities that could improve their lives. Emotional decisions often create long-term problems. This does not mean emotions are bad. Emotions are signals, not commands. Fear can warn you about danger, but it should not control your future. Anger can reveal injustice, but it should not control your words. Sadness can remind you of loss, but it should not convince you that hope is gone. Wise people learn to observe emotions without becoming slaves to them. A calm mind sees reality more clearly. This is why reflection matters. Spending time alone with your thoughts helps you understand yourself honestly. Many people avoid silence because silence exposes what they have been ignoring. When distractions disappear, unresolved fears, insecurities, and frustrations become visible. But facing these truths is necessary for growth. The brain also responds strongly to environment. Your surroundings shape your thinking more than you realize. The people you spend time with influence your mindset, habits, and emotional state. Negative environments increase stress and hopelessness. Disciplined environments encourage growth and responsibility. Even small details such as noise, clutter, and constant interruptions affect mental clarity. If you want a stronger mind, create an environment that supports focus and discipline. Keep your space organized, reduce unnecessary distractions. Spend time around people who encourage growth instead of negativity. Feed your mind with useful information instead of endless noise. Your environment quietly trains your brain every single day. Sleep also plays a major role in decision-making. A tired brain struggles to think clearly. Lack of rest weakens emotional control and increases impulsive behavior. Many poor decisions happen simply because the mind is exhausted. Rest is not weakness. Rest allows the brain to recover and function properly. A healthy mind requires proper sleep, movement, nutrition, and mental recovery. Physical health and mental health are deeply connected. Exercise improves focus, emotional balance, and resilience. Movement reduces stress and increases mental energy. A person who neglects their body often experiences greater mental fatigue. The brain is part of the body. Caring for your physical health directly affects your thinking patterns. Your inner dialogue also shapes your decisions powerfully. The way you speak to yourself matters. Many people constantly repeat negative thoughts inside their minds without realizing the damage. They tell themselves they are weak, incapable, or unlucky. Over time, the brain begins accepting these thoughts as truth. Confidence weakens, fear increases, action decreases. You must become careful with your internal language. This does not mean pretending everything is perfect. It means speaking honestly without destroying yourself mentally. Instead of saying you always fail, remind yourself that mistakes are part of learning. Instead of saying change is impossible, remind yourself that progress happens through repetition. Your brain listens to the words you repeat most often. The mind also remembers emotional experiences strongly. Painful memories can shape future behavior for years. A person rejected in the past may fear relationships. A person criticized constantly may struggle with confidence. A person who experienced failure may avoid future risks. The brain tries to prevent repeated pain by creating protective behaviors. Unfortunately, these protective patterns often limit growth. Healing requires awareness and patience. You cannot erase painful experiences instantly, but you can change your relationship with them. You can stop allowing old experiences to define your future decisions. You can recognize fear without obeying it. You can slowly retrain the brain through new experiences and consistent action. One powerful way to strengthen the mind is through deliberate repetition. The brain changes through practice, not intention alone. Reading about confidence does not create confidence. Repeated courageous action creates confidence. Reading about discipline does not build discipline. Daily disciplined behavior builds discipline. Your actions teach the brain what to believe about yourself. This is why small daily habits matter more than dramatic temporary motivation. Small repeated actions slowly reshape the brain. Waking up on time teaches responsibility. Finishing tasks teaches consistency. Exercising regularly teaches self-respect. Staying calm during stress teaches emotional control. Every repeated behavior strengthens mental pathways inside the brain. Patience is essential during this process. Many people quit because they expect immediate transformation. They become frustrated when old habits return. But the brain requires time to change. Years of negative thinking cannot disappear in a few days. Real growth happens gradually through repetition, persistence, and self-awareness. There will be days when your mind feels heavy and unfocused. There will be moments when old habits try to pull you backward. This is normal. Progress is not about perfection. Progress is about continuing to train the mind even during difficult moments. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, you strengthen yourself. Every time you choose awareness over automatic reaction, you gain more control. The strongest minds are not free from struggle. They simply understand how to respond wisely. They know that thoughts are temporary. They know emotions rise and fall. They know discomfort is part of growth. Instead of panicking during difficult moments, they stay grounded in reason and discipline. Your brain is constantly adapting to the life you live daily. If your days are filled with distraction, negativity, and avoidance, your mind slowly weakens. If your days are filled with learning, focus, discipline, and reflection your mind slowly strengthens. Your future is shaped by what you repeatedly allow into your brain. This is why daily awareness matters so deeply. Pay attention to what influences your thinking. Pay attention to the conversations you repeat internally. Pay attention to the habits controlling your actions. Most importantly, pay attention to whether your decisions are helping your future or damaging it. Many people search for external solutions while ignoring internal responsibility. They blame circumstances, other people, or bad luck for everything. But true transformation begins when you accept responsibility for training your own mind. This does not mean controlling everything perfectly. It means becoming conscious instead of living automatically. A person who understands their own mind becomes harder to manipulate. They stop reacting emotionally to every opinion. They stop seeking constant approval. They stop allowing fear to dominate decisions. They begin living with greater clarity, purpose, and discipline. There is enormous power in mental control. A focused mind can achieve difficult goals. A calm mind can survive hardship without collapsing emotionally. A disciplined mind can continue working even when motivation disappears. These abilities are not gifts given only to a few people. They are skills developed through practice. Every decision you make is shaping your future identity. The brain remembers what you repeatedly do. If you repeatedly act with honesty, courage, discipline, and patience, those qualities become stronger inside you. If you repeatedly avoid responsibility, complain constantly, and seek comfort, those patterns also grow stronger. Your daily choices are training your mind whether you realize it or not. This understanding should not create fear, it should create hope. Because if the brain can learn destructive habits, it can also learn healthier ones. If your mind has been filled with doubt, it can slowly develop confidence. If your thinking has been ruled by distraction, it can slowly develop focus. If your emotions have controlled your life, you can learn emotional discipline. Change begins with awareness, followed by consistent action. Observe yourself honestly without excuses. Notice your mental habits carefully. Identify the patterns holding you back. Then begin making small disciplined improvements every day. Small changes repeated consistently create powerful long-term transformation. When you wake up tomorrow, your brain will continue shaping your decisions just as it always has. The question is whether you will remain unconscious of these patterns or finally take responsibility for directing your own mind. Your future depends heavily on this choice. You do not need perfect conditions to strengthen your mind. You do not need endless motivation. You need awareness, discipline, patience, and repeated action. The brain changes according to what you practice daily. Practice focus, practice calmness, practice responsibility, practice courage during uncomfortable moments. Over time, these actions become part of who you are. Your mind is not your enemy. It is a tool, but like any tool, it must be trained carefully. An untrained mind becomes distracted, impulsive, fearful, and emotionally unstable. A trained mind becomes focused, disciplined, thoughtful, and resilient. The quality of your life is deeply connected to the quality of your thinking. Every action, every reaction, and every decision begins inside the mind first. When you learn how your brain truly works, you stop living blindly. You begin making decisions with awareness instead of impulse. You begin shaping your future intentionally instead of accidentally. This is where real personal growth begins, not with empty motivation, not with temporary excitement. Real growth begins when you understand the patterns controlling your behavior and take daily responsibility for training your mind toward wisdom, discipline, and purpose. Your brain is always listening to what you repeatedly do. Teach it carefully. Chapter 2. Strengthen your focus by training your mind against distractions. Focus is one of the rare abilities that can change an entire life. It affects the quality of your work, the depth of your learning, the strength of your discipline, and the calmness of your mind. A person with scattered attention can spend the whole day busy and still achieve very little. A person with trained focus can turn a simple day into real progress. This is why distractions are such a serious problem. They do not only waste time, they weaken your ability to think clearly, stay committed, and finish what matters. Distraction often feels harmless at first. A quick glance at the phone, a short break from a difficult task, a small pause to check one message. None of these moments seems dangerous by itself, but when they repeat all day, they create a mind that cannot stay still. The brain becomes trained to move from one thing to another without depth. It begins craving novelty instead of effort. It becomes uncomfortable with silence, because silence forces attention. Over time, the mind learns to avoid challenge and chase easy stimulation. This is why so many people struggle to complete meaningful work. Their problem is not intelligence. Their problem is training. The brain has been trained by constant interruption. It has become used to short bursts of attention instead of steady concentration. The good news is that the brain can be retrained. Focus is not something you either have or do not have. It is a skill that grows stronger through practice. To build focus, you must first become honest about what steals it. Some distractions come from outside. Noise, notification, conversations, random interruptions, and screens all pull at your attention. Other distractions come from inside. Worry, boredom, impatience, self-doubt, and the desire to escape discomfort can all break concentration just as easily. A distracted mind often blames the world, when the real problem is an untrained habit of escape. The first step is to notice when your attention slips. Do not judge yourself harshly. Simply observe. Pay attention to the moment when you stop working and reach for something easier. Notice what feeling appears right before that choice. Maybe the task feels hard. Maybe you feel uncertain. Maybe you want quick relief. This observation matters because you cannot change what you do not see. Once you understand the pattern, you can begin to interrupt it. One of the strongest ways to train focus is to create clear boundaries around your attention. Your mind needs structure. It cannot thrive when everything is allowed to enter at any time. Decide when you will work and when you will rest. Decide which tools deserve your attention and which ones do not. Turn off unnecessary alerts. Keep your phone away when you need to think deeply. Give your brain one task at a time instead of asking it to split itself into many pieces. Single tasking is powerful because it teaches the brain to stay with one thing long enough to make progress. Many people believe multitasking is efficient, but in reality, it often creates shallow thinking and careless mistakes. When you divide your mind too often, you weaken your ability to enter a deep state of work. True strength comes from staying with one important task long enough for momentum to build. There is also great value in starting with small periods of focus. You do not need to begin with hours of deep concentration. Begin with 10 minutes of undivided attention, then 20, then 30. The brain responds well to gradual training. Just as a body grows stronger through repeated exercise, the mind grows stronger through repeated attention. Each time you remain focused despite the urge to drift, you are building mental endurance. You will notice resistance when you begin this practice. The mind does not like effort at first. It may feel restless, it may beg for interruption. It may try to convince you that checking something for a moment will not matter. This is where discipline becomes important. The moment you resist that urge, you are teaching your mind that it does not control you. You are building authority over your own attention. A calm environment helps, but it cannot replace inner discipline. Even in a quiet room, the mind can wander if it has learned to escape constantly. Even with no phone nearby, the brain may still seek distraction through daydreaming or unnecessary thoughts. That is why focus must be trained, both outside and inside. Remove what you can from your environment and then train yourself to return to the task whenever your mind drifts. Returning is part of the practice. A focused person is not someone whose mind never wanders. A focused person is someone who notices the drift and returns quickly without drama. This is an important distinction. You do not need to punish yourself for losing attention. You need to practice bringing yourself back. Every return strengthens your control. Every return reminds the brain that you are the one leading. A useful habit is to begin each work session by deciding exactly what deserves your attention. Vague goals invite distraction. Clear goals create direction. Instead of telling yourself to get something done, be specific about what you will complete and for how long. When the brain knows the target, it wastes less energy wandering. Clarity is a powerful form of mental discipline. It also helps to understand that focus is connected to purpose. When a task feels meaningless, the brain resists it more strongly. When a task feels connected to a larger goal, the mind becomes more willing to stay with it. This is why it is important to remind yourself why your work matters. You are not only trying to finish a task, you are building a stronger character. You are proving that your attention belongs to what truly matters rather than to whatever appears easiest. The more you protect your attention, the more valuable it becomes. A distracted life often feels busy but empty. A focused life feels steady and meaningful. Focus gives you the ability to study deeply, to work honestly, to listen carefully, and to make decisions with greater wisdom. It helps you become more present in your conversations, more effective in your work, and more peaceful in your own mind. There is another truth worth remembering. Constant distraction often comes from avoidance. When a task is difficult, the brain looks for escape. That escape may be entertainment, scrolling random thoughts, or unnecessary movement. But every time you avoid discomfort, the brain learns to fear effort more deeply. This is why facing small discomforts is so useful. Read the difficult page, finish the annoying task, sit with the quiet moment, stay present when your mind wants to run. These small acts of endurance build real focus. Over time, you will begin to notice changes that go beyond productivity. Your thinking will become sharper, your emotions will feel less chaotic, your confidence will grow because you will trust yourself more. A person who can direct attention can also direct action, and a person who can direct action can slowly change a life. Do not wait for perfect motivation. Focus is built when the mind is tired and still chooses to stay. Focus is built when the work feels slow and you continue anyway. Focus is built when you say no to the small distractions that try to pull you away from the life you want. Your attention is one of the most precious things you own. It shapes what you learn, what you feel, what you remember, and what you become. Guard it carefully, train it patiently, use it wisely. Every time you choose focus over distraction, you are not just getting more done. You are becoming a stronger, more disciplined, and more capable human being. Chapter 3. Control emotional reactions through deeper awareness of mental patterns. Most people do not realize how much of their life is controlled by emotional reactions. A single moment of anger can damage years of trust. A few seconds of fear can stop someone from chasing an important opportunity. One emotional impulse can lead to decisions that create regret, pain, and confusion. Many people believe emotions simply happen to them without control. They assume reactions are automatic and unavoidable. But the truth is far more important. Emotional reactions are often connected to mental patterns that have been repeated for years. The mind remembers experiences deeply. Every disappointment, every criticism, every embarrassment, and every painful memory leaves an impression. Over time, these experiences shape the way a person interprets the world. Someone who has been rejected repeatedly may become defensive during normal conversations. Someone who grew up around constant anger may react aggressively during conflict without fully understanding why. Someone who spent years feeling ignored may become emotionally dependent on approval from others. These patterns do not appear randomly. They develop slowly through repetition and emotional conditioning. Most emotional reactions happen so quickly that people never stop to examine them. A person hears criticism and instantly becomes angry. Another person faces uncertainty and immediately feels anxious. Someone else experiences disagreement and suddenly becomes cold or distant. The reaction feels natural because the brain has practiced it many times before. but automatic does not mean permanent. The mind can be retrained when awareness becomes stronger than impulse. Self-awareness is one of the most powerful forms of emotional control. A person who understands their inner patterns gains the ability to pause before reacting. That pause changes everything. Without awareness, emotions control behavior immediately. With awareness, a person can observe the feeling without obeying it instantly. This is where emotional maturity begins. The problem is that many people spend their entire lives avoiding self-observation. They blame other people for every emotional outburst. They justify harmful reactions by saying they were angry, stressed, or frustrated. They speak harshly and later claim their emotions made them do it. But emotions do not remove responsibility. Strong character is built when a person learns to feel emotions fully without allowing them to control actions blindly. The first step toward emotional mastery is honesty. You must become willing to examine your reactions carefully. Notice what situations trigger strong emotions inside you. Pay attention to the thoughts that appear during conflict, pressure, or disappointment. Observe the physical sensations in your body when emotions rise. Maybe your chest becomes tight during fear. Maybe your breathing changes during anger. Maybe your thoughts become chaotic during stress. Awareness of these signals gives you valuable time before the reaction fully takes over. Most people react emotionally because they never learned how to sit with discomfort calmly. The brain wants immediate relief. When someone feels hurt, they may attack another person verbally. When someone feels insecure, they may seek attention desperately. When someone feels rejected, they may isolate themselves emotionally. These reactions are attempts to escape pain quickly, but temporary relief often creates larger problems later. A calm mind understands that emotions are temporary experiences, not permanent truths. Feeling angry does not mean you must become aggressive. Feeling afraid does not mean you should run away. Feeling sad does not mean your future is hopeless. Emotions carry information, but they should not become the leader of your decisions. Wise people learn to listen to emotions carefully, without surrendering control to them. One of the strongest ways to weaken emotional reactivity is through reflection. Reflection allows you to examine situations after they happen. Instead of simply replaying the event, emotionally ask deeper questions. Why did this situation affect me so strongly? What fear or insecurity became activated? Did my reaction improve the situation or damage it further? What would a calmer response have looked like? These questions slowly train the brain to think before reacting. There is great power in learning to separate events from interpretations. Many emotional reactions come not from reality itself, but from the meaning the mind creates around it. A delayed message becomes rejection. A disagreement becomes disrespect. A mistake becomes proof of failure. The brain often creates dramatic conclusions without enough evidence. When you challenge these interpretations, calmly, emotional intensity decreases. This does not mean ignoring emotions or pretending not to feel anything. Emotional suppression is not strength. Ignoring pain completely often causes it to grow internally. Real control comes from acknowledging emotions honestly, while still choosing wise behavior. A disciplined person can admit feeling angry while refusing to become destructive. A mature person can feel fear while still moving forward carefully. Emotional strength is not emotional numbness. It is emotional balance. Another important truth is that exhausted minds react more impulsively. Lack of rest, stress, overstimulation, and constant mental pressure weaken emotional control. When the brain becomes overloaded, patience disappears quickly. Small problems suddenly feel overwhelming. This is why taking care of your mental and physical health matters deeply. Sleep, movement, silence, and recovery are not luxuries. They are necessary for emotional stability. The information you consume also affects your emotional patterns. Constant exposure to negativity, outrage, and comparison trains the brain toward emotional instability. Many people spend hours consuming content that keeps the nervous system tense and overstimulated. Over time, this creates irritability, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. Protecting your mind from unnecessary negativity is an act of discipline. Your environment influences your emotional state more than you realize. If you spend time around people who constantly complain, panic, or create conflict, your own mind slowly absorbs that energy. If your surroundings are chaotic, your nervous system remains alert constantly. Peaceful environments support calmer thinking. Responsible relationships encourage emotional growth. Choose carefully what influences your inner world. There is also wisdom in learning when silence is better than reaction. Not every criticism deserves a response. Not every insult requires defense. Not every disagreement needs to become a battle. Many emotional reactions happen because people feel desperate to protect their pride. They speak too quickly and later regret their words. A calm pause often prevents unnecessary damage. Patience is one of the clearest signs of emotional intelligence. Impulsive people react immediately because they cannot tolerate emotional discomfort. Patient people allow emotions to settle before making decisions. They understand that intense feelings often distort perspective temporarily. Time creates clarity. Calm reflection reveals what emotional intensity hides. It is important to understand that emotional habits are strengthened through repetition. If you react angrily every time frustration appears, the brain becomes more skilled at anger. If you panic during every stressful moment, the brain becomes more sensitive to fear. But the opposite is also true. Every time you remain calm during difficulty, you strengthen emotional resilience. Every time you pause before reacting, you build greater self-control. This process requires practice. You will not become emotionally disciplined overnight. There will be moments when old habits return. You may still lose patience. You may still react emotionally sometimes. But progress happens when recovery becomes faster and awareness becomes deeper. Instead of remaining trapped inside reactions for hours or days, you begin noticing them earlier. You start correcting yourself sooner. You become more thoughtful with your words, actions, and decisions. Forgiveness also plays an important role in emotional freedom. Holding on to resentment keeps the mind emotionally tied to pain. Some people replay old wounds for years without realizing how deeply it drains their peace. Forgiveness does not mean approving harmful behavior. It means refusing to let bitterness continue controlling your inner life. A mind consumed by resentment struggles to experience calmness clearly. Strong emotional control creates better relationships, better decisions, and greater inner peace. People trust calm individuals because they feel emotionally safe around them. A person who reacts wisely during pressure becomes dependable. Emotional steadiness creates respect because it reflects maturity and discipline. One powerful habit is learning to slow down during emotional moments. Slow your breathing, lower your voice. Sit quietly before responding. Give the nervous system time to settle. Most damage happens during emotionally rushed decisions. Slowing down interrupts the automatic pattern and creates space for wisdom. The human mind often seeks certainty and control, but life will always contain discomfort, unpredictability, and challenge. Emotional suffering increases when people demand that reality always match their expectations. Acceptance reduces unnecessary emotional struggle. Acceptance does not mean weakness or surrender. It means understanding that some situations cannot be changed immediately, and reacting with panic only increases suffering. Mental patterns can change when repeated awareness becomes stronger than automatic reaction. This is how emotional transformation happens, not through pretending to be perfect, but through consistent observation, correction, and discipline. Each calm response rewires the brain slightly. Each thoughtful decision strengthens emotional stability. Over time, the mind becomes less reactive and more centered. You begin noticing situations that once controlled you emotionally no longer have the same power. Criticism feels less threatening. Delays feel more manageable. Conflict feels less overwhelming. Your inner world becomes steadier, because your reactions are no longer entirely controlled by unconscious patterns. This kind of growth creates freedom. A person who cannot control emotional reactions becomes controlled by external events constantly. Their mood changes based on other people's opinions, circumstances, and temporary frustrations. But a person with emotional awareness develops inner stability. They stop giving every situation permission to control their peace. Real strength is quiet. It appears in the ability to stay respectful during disagreement. It appears in the ability to think clearly during stress. It appears in the ability to remain grounded when emotions rise strongly. These qualities are not signs of weakness. They are signs of mastery over oneself. Your emotional patterns are not your identity. They are learned responses that can be examined, challenged, and changed. The brain adapts according to what you practice repeatedly. Practice patience during frustration. Practice reflection during confusion. Practice calmness during pressure. Practice understanding instead of immediate judgment. The more awareness you bring into your emotional life, the more control you gain over your decisions. And the more control you gain over your decisions, the more powerfully you shape your future. Chapter 4. Reprogram limiting beliefs through conscious daily thought correction. Many people live inside invisible mental walls without realizing it. They wake up every day carrying beliefs about themselves that quietly shape every decision they make. Some believe they are not intelligent enough to succeed. Others believe they are too damaged to change. Some think they will always struggle because failure has followed them for years. These thoughts may feel deeply personal and permanent, but most of them were learned slowly through repeated experiences, words, and emotional pain. A limiting belief is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it hides behind ordinary thoughts that seem harmless. A person says they are probably not capable enough for a better opportunity. Someone else assumes they will fail before even trying. Another person avoids speaking honestly because they believe their voice does not matter. Over time, these thoughts become accepted as truth. The brain stops questioning them and begins building behavior around them. This is how limiting beliefs quietly shape entire lives. A person with low confidence avoids risks and then never develops new skills. Someone who believes success belongs only to other people stops making serious effort. A person convinced they are unworthy accepts poor treatment because they think they deserve nothing better. The belief creates the behavior, and the behavior strengthens the belief. The mind repeats whatever it hears often enough. If negative thinking becomes constant, the brain adapts to it. Thoughts repeated daily slowly become mental habits. These habits influence emotions, actions, relationships, and decisions. Many people spend years trapped inside old mental programming that was created during painful moments long ago. Some limiting beliefs begin during childhood. A person constantly criticized may grow into an adult who doubts every decision. Someone ignored emotionally may struggle to believe they matter. A child repeatedly told they are incapable may eventually stop trusting their own abilities completely. The brain absorbs repeated messages deeply, especially during emotional experiences. Other beliefs develop later through failure, rejection, embarrassment, or disappointment. A few painful moments can create powerful mental conclusions. Someone experiences one rejection and begins believing nobody will ever value them. One business failure becomes proof they should never try again. A difficult season convinces a person that struggle will define their entire future. The mind often turns temporary experiences into permanent identity. The dangerous part is that limiting beliefs rarely announce themselves clearly. They operate quietly in the background, shaping behavior automatically. A person may believe they are making rational choices while actually being controlled by fear, conditioning, and self-doubt. This is why conscious thought correction is necessary. You must learn to observe your thinking instead of blindly accepting every thought as reality. The brain produces thoughts constantly, but not every thought deserves trust. Some thoughts are distorted by fear, insecurity, exhaustion, or past pain. Many people assume that because a thought feels strong, it must also be true. But emotions often influence perception. A fearful mind sees danger where none exists. An insecure mind sees rejection too quickly. A hopeless mind ignores opportunities completely. The first step toward reprogramming limiting beliefs is awareness. You must identify the thoughts that repeatedly weaken your confidence, peace, or discipline. Listen carefully to your inner dialogue during difficult moments. Notice what you say to yourself after mistakes. Observe the thoughts that appear when you face uncertainty, challenge, or discomfort. Maybe your mind says you always fail when things become difficult. Maybe it tells you that change is impossible for someone like you. Maybe it constantly compares your life to others and convinces you that you are behind. These thoughts matter because repeated internal language shapes identity over time. Once you recognize these patterns, you must begin challenging them honestly. Do not accept destructive thoughts automatically. Ask yourself whether the belief is truly supported by reality or simply reinforced by repetition. Many limiting beliefs collapse when examined carefully. One failure does not prove permanent inability. One rejection does not define your worth. One difficult season does not predict your entire future. Thought correction requires patience because the brain resists change at first. Old mental patterns feel familiar even when they are harmful. The mind often returns to negative thinking automatically because it has practiced those thoughts for years. This is why repetition matters. You are not trying to force fake positivity. You are training the brain to think more accurately and constructively. A useful practice is replacing destructive statements with truthful, disciplined alternatives. Instead of telling yourself you are incapable, remind yourself that skill improves through effort and practice. Instead of saying you always fail, recognize that setbacks are part of learning. Instead of believing you are trapped, acknowledge that progress happens gradually through consistent action. The goal is not to pretend life is easy. The goal is to stop feeding the mind unnecessary hopelessness. A disciplined mind speaks with honesty and strength at the same time. It recognizes difficulty without surrendering to defeat. Your actions also influence beliefs powerfully. The brain trusts evidence created through experience. This means confidence grows when behavior changes consistently. A person who keeps small promises to themselves slowly builds trust internally. Someone who faces uncomfortable situations despite fear begins weakening old mental limitations. Action teaches the brain what is possible. This is why waiting to feel confident before taking action often keeps people stuck. Confidence usually comes after repeated effort, not before it. The brain becomes convinced through experience. Each disciplined action sends a message to the mind that growth is possible. Small victories slowly replace old assumptions. Environment matters deeply during this process. If you surround yourself with constant negativity, criticism, and hopelessness, your limiting beliefs will grow stronger. Many people remain mentally trapped because they spend years listening to voices that reinforce weakness. Protect your mind carefully. Spend time around people who encourage responsibility, growth, honesty, and discipline. The content you consume also affects mental programming. Endless comparison, negativity, and shallow distractions damage self-perception over time. Your brain absorbs what you repeatedly expose it to. Feed your mind with ideas that strengthen wisdom, resilience, and self-respect instead of insecurity and fear. Another important part of thought correction is learning to separate identity from temporary emotion. A difficult day does not make you weak. Feeling uncertain does not make you incapable. Fear during new experiences is normal. Many people create destructive labels about themselves based on emotional moments. They confuse temporary feelings with permanent truth. Strong mental discipline requires emotional distance from negative thoughts. Observe them without immediately identifying with them. A thought saying you cannot improve does not mean improvement is impossible. A fearful prediction about the future is not reality. Thoughts are mental events, not commands. Many people also struggle because they constantly replay painful memories mentally. They return to old mistakes repeatedly and strengthen shame through repetition. The brain cannot move forward clearly while constantly living inside old failures. Reflection is useful when it teaches wisdom. Endless self-punishment only weakens growth. Forgive yourself for past mistakes, while still accepting responsibility for improvement. You cannot change previous decisions, but you can change the direction of your mind moving forward. Growth becomes possible when you stop defining yourself entirely by your worst moments. Discipline plays a major role in reprogramming beliefs. You must continue correcting your thinking, even when old patterns feel stronger temporarily. There will be days when self-doubt returns loudly. There will be moments when fear tries to convince you to quit. But every time you refuse to surrender mentally, you strengthen a healthier pattern inside the brain. Progress often feels slow because internal change happens quietly before visible results appear. Many people give up too early because they expect immediate transformation. But the mind changes gradually through repeated thought correction, consistent action, and emotional awareness. Just as negative beliefs were built through years of repetition, stronger beliefs also require repetition. You do not need to become perfect to change your life. You need to become conscious. Most people live on mental autopilot, allowing old conditioning to control their behavior. Real transformation begins when you stop accepting every negative thought automatically and begin directing your thinking intentionally. There is tremendous freedom in realizing that many of your limitations were learned rather than permanent. A person once convinced they were weak can become disciplined. Someone who spent years afraid can develop courage slowly. A person trapped in self-doubt can build confidence through daily action and mental correction. Your future depends heavily on the beliefs you practice repeatedly. If you constantly reinforce hopelessness, your behavior will reflect it. If you strengthen responsibility, patience, and possibility, your actions will slowly change as well. The mind follows the direction of repeated attention. You must become protective of your internal world. Thoughts repeated daily eventually shape identity. Speak to yourself with discipline. Correct destructive assumptions quickly. Refuse to strengthen hopeless thinking through constant repetition. Train your mind carefully because your inner dialogue influences nearly every part of your life. Many people search endlessly for external solutions while ignoring the beliefs controlling them internally. But no opportunity, achievement, or relationship can fully change a mind that remains trapped in self-rejection. Lasting change begins inside. When beliefs change, decisions change. When decisions change, behavior changes. When behavior changes, life begins changing slowly as well. This process requires courage because it forces honesty. You must confront the patterns that have limited you for years. You must stop using old pain as proof that growth is impossible. You must become willing to think differently even before external results appear. Your brain adapts according to repetition. Repeated fear strengthens fear. Repeated confidence building strengthens confidence. Repeated avoidance strengthens insecurity. Repeated courage strengthens resilience. Every day your thoughts are shaping your future identity quietly. The most important thing is consistency. Correct your thoughts daily. Speak with greater honesty internally. Challenge false assumptions. Continue acting despite discomfort. Continue building evidence that growth is possible. Over time, the brain begins accepting a new reality about who you are capable of becoming. You are not required to remain the person your past experiences trained you to be. The mind can learn new patterns when awareness, discipline, and repeated effort work together. This is how limiting beliefs lose their power. Not through sudden miracles, but through conscious daily correction, practiced patiently over time. Your thoughts influence your actions. Your actions shape your habits. Your habits shape your character. and your character shapes the direction of your entire life. Chapter 5. Improve memory performance through active learning and mental repetition. Many people believe memory is something fixed from birth. They assume some individuals are naturally gifted, while others are simply forgetful forever. This belief causes people to underestimate the incredible ability of the brain to improve through training. Memory is not only a natural talent. It is also a skill shaped by attention, repetition, emotional connection, and mental discipline. The brain strengthens what it uses regularly. A weak memory often comes from weak mental engagement rather than lack of intelligence. Modern life constantly overloads the mind with information. Notifications, conversations, videos, advertisements, and endless distractions pull attention in every direction. People consume more information than ever before, but remember less because their focus has become fragmented. Information enters the brain briefly, but disappears quickly because it was never deeply processed. The mind cannot remember clearly what it never fully paid attention to. Memory begins with attention. If your mind is distracted while reading, listening, or learning, the brain stores very little. Many people read pages without remembering what they just saw because their thoughts were elsewhere. Others listen to conversations while thinking about something completely different. The brain records experiences more effectively when attention becomes deliberate and present. This is why active learning matters so deeply. Passive exposure rarely creates strong memory. Simply hearing information once is usually not enough. The brain learns best when it actively participates. Asking questions, taking notes, explaining ideas aloud, and practicing recall all force the mind to engage deeply with information. Engagement strengthens memory pathways. Think about how easily you remember emotionally important experiences. You remember moments that embarrassed you, inspired you, frightened you, or changed your life because emotion increases mental attention. The brain treats emotionally meaningful experiences as important for survival and stores them more strongly. This teaches an important lesson. Information connected to strong attention and emotional involvement becomes easier to remember. One powerful way to improve memory is through repetition spaced over time. Many people attempt to memorize something once and then become frustrated when they forget it later. But the brain requires repeated exposure to strengthen information. Each review sends a signal that the knowledge matters. Repetition gradually moves information from temporary awareness into longer-lasting memory. Mental repetition becomes even more effective when combined with active recall. Instead of only rereading information, challenge yourself to remember it without looking. Close the book and explain the concept in your own words. Test yourself mentally during walks or quiet moments. The struggle to retrieve information strengthens memory far more than passive review alone. The brain grows stronger through mental effort. Easy learning often fades quickly because the mind was not challenged enough to build strong connections. Difficult recall forces the brain to work harder, which deepens retention. This is why thoughtful practice creates lasting learning. Sleep also plays a major role in memory performance. Many people underestimate how deeply exhaustion affects the mind. During sleep, the brain organizes and strengthens information gathered throughout the day. Poor sleep weakens concentration, learning, and recall. A tired mind struggles to absorb knowledge properly because mental energy becomes depleted. Rest is not separate from learning. Rest supports learning directly. Physical movement also improves mental performance. Exercise increases blood flow to the brain and helps support focus, clarity, and memory retention. A body trapped in constant inactivity often creates mental sluggishness as well. Walking regularly, stretching, and staying physically active can sharpen thinking more than many people realize. Nutrition matters too. The brain consumes enormous energy every day. Constant consumption of unhealthy food, excessive sugar, and poor hydration can affect mental sharpness gradually. Clear thinking requires proper fuel. Taking care of the body supports the mind because the two are deeply connected. Stress can damage memory significantly. When the mind remains under constant pressure, attention weakens and recall becomes more difficult. A stressed brain focuses heavily on survival emotions and immediate concerns rather than deep learning. This is why calmness improves memory performance. A relaxed, focused state allows the brain to process information more clearly. Many people sabotage their memory through multitasking. They try to study while checking messages, listening to videos, and thinking about several things at once. The brain performs poorly when attention becomes divided constantly. Deep concentration creates stronger mental storage. Shallow, scattered attention creates confusion and forgetfulness. Learning also becomes stronger when information is connected to real-life application. The brain remembers useful knowledge more easily than abstract, meaningless facts. If you learn something new, find ways to apply it immediately. Teach it to someone. Use it during conversations. Connect it to your daily experiences. Application strengthens memory because the information becomes part of real behavior instead of isolated theory. Curiosity improves memory naturally. When the mind becomes genuinely interested, it pays closer attention automatically. This is why boring forced learning often disappears quickly, while personally meaningful topics stay longer in memory. Developing curiosity transforms learning from passive obligation into active exploration. The environment around you also affects mental performance. Constant noise, clutter, and interruption weaken concentration. A calm, organized environment helps the brain focus more deeply. Even small improvements in your surroundings can support better thinking and memory. Protect your learning time carefully. Create periods where the mind can work without unnecessary interruption. Writing by hand can also improve memory retention. Slowing down enough to write forces the brain to process information more carefully. Many people type quickly without deeply thinking about the content. Handwriting encourages stronger mental involvement because the process requires more deliberate attention. Visualization is another useful technique. The brain remembers images more strongly than abstract words alone. Creating clear mental pictures while learning helps information become more vivid and memorable. Even simple imagination can strengthen recall significantly because the mind responds powerfully to visual association. Confidence also influences memory. Many people constantly tell themselves they have terrible memory and slowly reinforce that belief mentally. The brain listens to repeated internal language. If you repeatedly convince yourself that remembering is impossible, your attention and effort decrease automatically. Speak to yourself with discipline instead of defeat. Improvement becomes easier when the mind expects growth rather than failure. Patience matters deeply during mental training. Many people become discouraged too quickly when learning feels difficult. They compare themselves to others and assume they are incapable. But memory develops gradually through consistent effort. The brain adapts through practice, repetition, and focus over time. Small daily improvements eventually create major changes in mental sharpness. Mental overload also weakens retention. Constant consumption without reflection gives the brain little time to process deeply. Many people move from one piece of content to another endlessly without allowing information to settle. Silence, reflection, and review are necessary for stronger learning. The mind requires space to organize knowledge properly. One valuable habit is reviewing important ideas at the end of each day. Spend a few quiet moments recalling conversations, lessons, tasks, and experiences. This practice strengthens mental recall and trains the brain to pay greater attention throughout daily life. Reflection turns ordinary experiences into learning opportunities. Another powerful practice is reducing dependence on constant external reminders. Modern technology makes people rely heavily on devices for memory. While tools can be useful, excessive dependence weakens active recall habits. Challenge yourself occasionally to remember phone numbers, directions, tasks, and information mentally. Mental exercise strengthens cognitive ability just as physical exercise strengthens muscles. Reading carefully also sharpens memory. Many people rush through books and articles without true comprehension. Slow down enough to understand deeply. Pause after important ideas. Reflect on meaning. Ask yourself how the information connects to your life. Thoughtful reading creates stronger retention than hurried consumption. Conversation improves memory too. Discussing ideas with others forces the brain to organize thoughts clearly. Teaching someone else is especially powerful because explanation reveals whether you truly understand something. If you cannot explain an idea, simply you probably have not learned it deeply enough yet. Mental repetition should not become mechanical. Repeating information without understanding creates weak learning. Real retention grows when repetition combines with meaning, attention, and emotional involvement. The brain remembers what feels important, useful, and connected to experience. A disciplined mind approaches learning with consistency rather than temporary excitement. Some people study intensely for one day and then abandon the effort completely. This inconsistency weakens long-term improvement. Short, regular periods of focused learning are often more effective than occasional bursts of overwhelming effort. Protecting mental energy is important as well. Endless stimulation weakens the brain ability to concentrate deeply. Constant entertainment trains the mind to expect quick rewards and rapid change. Learning requires patience, sustained attention, and mental endurance. A calm, disciplined lifestyle supports stronger memory naturally. The brain is always adapting. Every repeated mental habit strengthens certain pathways. If you spend years training distraction, forgetfulness, and shallow attention, your memory weakens gradually. If you train focus, repetition, curiosity, and active engagement, your memory improves steadily. You do not need extraordinary talent to strengthen your mind. You need consistency, awareness, and disciplined practice. Improvement begins when you stop treating memory as something fixed and begin treating it as something trainable. There is great satisfaction in developing a sharper mind. Better memory improves communication, confidence, learning, and daily functioning. You become more present in conversations because you remember details clearly. You think more effectively because information becomes easier to access. You learn faster because the brain develops stronger connections. Most importantly, mental training builds self-respect. Every time you challenge your mind, you prove that growth remains possible. You remind yourself that your brain is not limited to old patterns. The mind changes according to how it is used daily. Use your attention carefully. Repeat what matters. Practice active learning instead of passive consumption. Protect your mental clarity from constant distraction. Give your brain proper rest, movement, and focus. Over time, your memory will become stronger, not through luck but through disciplined training. The human brain responds to effort with adaptation. What you practice repeatedly becomes stronger. Train your mind with patience and purpose, and it will reward you with greater clarity, sharper recall, and deeper understanding throughout your life. Chapter 6. Protect your mental health by managing stress with discipline. Stress has become so common in modern life that many people no longer recognize how deeply it affects them. They wake up already mentally tired. Their thoughts move quickly from one worry to another. Their bodies remain tense even during quiet moments. They struggle to sleep peacefully because the mind refuses to slow down. Over time, this constant pressure begins affecting emotions, decisions, relationships, focus, and physical health. Many people accept this condition as normal because they have lived with it for so long. The human brain was designed to respond to danger for short periods of time. Stress once helped people survive immediate threats by increasing alertness and physical readiness, but modern stress is often continuous. Financial pressure, social comparison, endless information, emotional conflict, and constant demands keep the nervous system active without recovery. The brain begins living in a state of ongoing tension even when no immediate danger exists. This constant strain slowly weakens mental clarity. A stressed mind becomes impatient, reactive, and emotionally exhausted. Small problems begin feeling larger than they really are. Simple responsibilities become overwhelming. Decision-making suffers because the brain becomes overloaded with pressure and worry. When stress remains unmanaged for long periods, it drains emotional energy and damages inner peace. Many people try to escape stress temporarily instead of learning how to manage it wisely. They distract themselves endlessly with entertainment, noise, scrolling, or unhealthy habits. Others suppress emotions completely while pretending everything is fine. But ignored stress does not disappear. It accumulates quietly inside the mind and body. Eventually, the pressure appears through anger, fatigue, anxiety, hopelessness, or emotional numbness. Mental health requires discipline because peace does not happen automatically in a chaotic world. A strong mind must be protected intentionally. This does not mean avoiding responsibility or difficulty. It means learning how to face life without allowing pressure to destroy inner balance. Discipline creates structure, stability, and recovery for the mind. One of the first steps in managing stress is recognizing what actually deserves your energy. Many people waste enormous emotional strength worrying about things beyond their control. They replay conversations repeatedly. They imagine worst possible outcomes constantly. They obsess over opinions they cannot change. This mental habit creates unnecessary suffering because the brain reacts emotionally even to imagined threats. A disciplined mind learns to separate what can be controlled from what cannot. You cannot control every situation, every person, or every outcome. But you can control your responses, your habits, your preparation, and your perspective. Focusing attention only on what you can influence reduces mental exhaustion significantly. Another major source of stress is mental overload. Many people never allow the brain time to recover. From morning until night, their minds remain filled with stimulation. Messages, notifications, noise, conversations, videos, and constant information leave no room for stillness. The nervous system becomes exhausted because it never receives silence. Quiet moments are necessary for emotional recovery. Spending time away from noise allows the brain to settle and organize thoughts more clearly. Reflection calms the nervous system because it slows mental activity. A few peaceful moments each day can reduce internal pressure more than people realize. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is recovery for the mind. Sleep is one of the most important forms of mental protection. A tired brain struggles to manage stress effectively. Emotional reactions become stronger when the body is exhausted. Patience weakens. Focus disappears more quickly. Small frustrations feel unbearable. Proper rest helps regulate emotional balance and mental clarity. Many people damage their mental health simply because they ignore the basic need for recovery. Physical movement also reduces stress powerfully. The human body was not designed for constant inactivity combined with endless mental pressure. Exercise releases tension, improves mood, and helps clear mental fog. Even regular walking can calm the nervous system significantly. Movement gives the brain relief from accumulated stress and emotional heaviness. Breathing plays a larger role in emotional regulation than many people realize. During stressful moments, breathing often becomes shallow and fast without conscious awareness. This signals the nervous system to remain alert and tense. Slow, controlled breathing sends the opposite signal. It communicates safety and calmness to the brain. A few minutes of steady breathing during stressful moments can interrupt emotional escalation before it grows stronger. Discipline also means creating healthy routines instead of living reactively. Chaotic lifestyles increase stress because the brain constantly feels uncertain and overwhelmed. Regular sleeping patterns, organized schedules, healthy eating, and structured habits create stability. Stability helps the nervous system feel safer and more balanced. Many people increase stress by constantly rushing through life. They hurry during meals, conversations, work, and even moments meant for rest. The mind never fully relaxes because it becomes addicted to urgency. Slowing down intentionally can restore mental clarity. Speak more calmly, walk more steadily, give your full attention to simple tasks. Presence reduces unnecessary mental tension. Another important truth is that comparison creates emotional exhaustion. Many people spend hours measuring their lives against others through social media and outside appearances. They see only polished moments and begin feeling inadequate internally. This constant comparison damages peace because the mind becomes focused on perceived lack rather than personal growth. Protect your mental health by limiting unnecessary comparison. Your path is different from someone else's path. Growth happens at different speeds for different people. Constantly measuring yourself against others creates pressure without purpose. A disciplined person focuses more on personal improvement than external competition. Boundaries are also essential for emotional well-being. Some people allow everyone access to their time, energy, and attention until exhaustion becomes overwhelming. They struggle to say no even when mentally drained. But protecting your peace sometimes requires limiting certain conversations, environments, or relationships. Boundaries are not selfish when they protect mental stability. There is strength in accepting that not every problem can be solved immediately. Some stress comes from demanding instant answers to complex situations. Life often unfolds gradually. Certain challenges require patience rather than panic. A calm mind understands that uncertainty is part of human experience. Fighting reality emotionally only creates additional suffering. Your thoughts influence stress levels constantly. Catastrophic thinking turns small problems into emotional emergencies. A disciplined mind avoids exaggeration. Instead of assuming everything will collapse during difficulty, it focuses on practical next steps. Clear thinking reduces emotional chaos because the brain stops creating unnecessary danger mentally. It is also important to release unrealistic expectations of perfection. Many people place enormous pressure on themselves because they fear mistakes, failure, or judgment. They become mentally exhausted, trying to control every detail perfectly. But perfection is impossible. Growth comes through learning, adaptation, and persistence, not flawless performance. Self-respect plays a major role in stress management. When you constantly ignore your own needs, exhaustion grows quickly. Neglecting rest, emotional recovery, physical care, and meaningful reflection weakens resilience over time. Discipline includes caring for your mind before complete burnout appears. Human connection matters deeply as well. Isolation increases emotional strain because the mind carries burdens alone. Honest conversations with trustworthy people can reduce emotional weight significantly. Feeling understood creates relief because the nervous system no longer feels completely isolated during difficulty. At the same time, not every emotional reaction needs immediate expression. Some people intensify stress by constantly feeding emotional drama through endless complaining and overreaction. Calm reflection often solves more than emotional chaos. Speak thoughtfully instead of impulsively. Process emotions carefully instead of spreading tension everywhere. Gratitude can also strengthen mental resilience. A stressed mind often focuses entirely on problems while ignoring what remains meaningful and valuable. This does not mean denying hardship. It means refusing to let difficulty blind you completely. Appreciating simple things such as health, meaningful relationships, peaceful moments, and opportunities for growth helps balance perspective during stressful seasons. Patience is one of the greatest forms of emotional discipline. Many people suffer not only because life is difficult, but because they demand immediate relief from every uncomfortable feeling. But discomfort is part of growth, responsibility, and human experience. A disciplined mind tolerates temporary discomfort without collapsing emotionally. Stress management is not about removing every challenge from life. It is about developing the inner stability to face challenges without losing yourself completely. A calm person still experiences pressure, sadness, uncertainty, and difficulty. The difference is that they respond with greater awareness and steadiness. Your daily habits either strengthen or weaken mental health gradually. Constant negativity weakens emotional balance. Endless distraction weakens clarity. Poor sleep weakens resilience. Chaotic routines weaken stability. But thoughtful habits create the opposite effect. Calm reflection strengthens awareness. Exercise strengthens energy. Rest strengthens emotional regulation. Discipline strengthens peace. There will always be difficult seasons in life. Unexpected problems, emotional pain, uncertainty, and disappointment are unavoidable parts of being human. But suffering increases when the mind becomes undisciplined during hardship. Panic, confusion, impulsive behavior, and hopeless thinking often create more damage than the original problem itself. A disciplined mind remains grounded during pressure. It does not ignore reality, but it refuses to surrender completely to fear. It focuses on what can still be done. It protects energy carefully. It continues functioning even during emotional storms. Peace is not created by perfect circumstances. Peace is created by inner management. The outside world will always contain uncertainty, noise, and pressure. But your response to that world can become wiser, calmer, and more disciplined over time. Your mental health deserves protection because your mind shapes every part of your life. It affects how you think, speak, work, love, rest, and endure hardship. Guard it carefully, reduce unnecessary stress where possible, strengthen your daily routines, create moments of recovery, learn to pause before emotional overload takes control. The brain responds to how you treat it daily. A neglected mind becomes exhausted, reactive, and overwhelmed. A disciplined mind becomes steadier, clearer, and more resilient. Small, consistent acts of mental care create enormous long-term strength. You do not need to control every event in life to experience peace. You need to learn how to remain centered while life continues changing around you. Chapter 7. Build stronger habits by understanding how neural pathways develop. Every human life is shaped by habits far more than dramatic moments. The small actions repeated quietly each day eventually become the foundation of health, success, confidence, discipline, and emotional stability. Many people wait for powerful motivation before changing their lives, but lasting transformation rarely begins with intense emotion. Real change usually begins with repeated behavior, practiced consistently until the brain accepts it as normal. Most people underestimate how strongly habits control daily life. The way you wake up, eat, speak, think, react, work, and rest is influenced by patterns your brain has repeated many times before. Some of these patterns help you grow, while others quietly weaken your future. A person who constantly delays important work develops a habit of avoidance. Someone who speaks negatively to themselves daily strengthens insecurity over time. Another person who exercises consistently and manages responsibilities carefully builds discipline gradually through repetition. Habits exist because the brain is designed to conserve energy. If every action required deep conscious effort, the mind would become exhausted quickly. To solve this problem, the brain creates automatic pathways through repeated behavior. The more often an action is repeated, the stronger and faster the pathway becomes. Eventually, the behavior begins happening with little conscious effort. This process explains why habits can feel difficult to change even when they create suffering. A behavior repeated for years becomes deeply familiar to the brain. The mind prefers what feels familiar because familiarity feels safe and efficient. This is why unhealthy habits often continue long after a person understands the damage they cause. The neural pathways connected to those actions have become strong through repetition. The encouraging truth is that the brain remains adaptable throughout life. New neural pathways can form when new behaviors are practiced consistently. This means change is possible even after years of negative patterns. The process requires patience, discipline, and repetition because the brain changes gradually, not instantly. Every repeated action sends instructions to the brain. When you repeat a behavior, the neurons connected to that action begin strengthening their communication with each other. Over time, the brain becomes more efficient at performing that behavior. This applies to both helpful and harmful habits. Repeated focus strengthens concentration. Repeated distraction strengthens restlessness. Repeated calmness strengthens emotional control. Repeated avoidance strengthens fear. Understanding this changes the way you view personal growth. You stop seeing yourself as permanently fixed. Instead, you begin recognizing that your daily actions are training your brain constantly. Your habits are shaping your mental pathways every single day, whether you realize it or not. Many people try to change their lives through massive, sudden effort. They attempt extreme routines, unrealistic schedules, and dramatic transformation overnight. But the brain often resists overwhelming change because it threatens familiar patterns. This resistance causes many people to quit quickly and return to old behaviors. Small, consistent action is usually far more powerful than temporary intensity. A single disciplined action may seem insignificant in the moment, but repetition gives it power. Reading a few pages daily strengthens learning habits. Going for a short walk regularly builds physical consistency. Waking up on time trains responsibility. Practicing calm breathing during stress develops emotional regulation. These small behaviors gradually become stronger neural pathways inside the brain. The beginning of habit change often feels uncomfortable because the new pathway remains weak. The old habit still feels easier, more automatic, and more familiar. A person trying to stop procrastinating may feel strong resistance when starting important work. Someone trying to eat healthier may crave familiar unhealthy foods. The brain naturally moves toward established patterns because those pathways have been reinforced repeatedly. This is where discipline becomes essential. Discipline means continuing the new behavior even before it feels natural. Every repetition strengthens the new pathway slightly. Every time you choose the healthier action, despite discomfort, you are teaching the brain a new direction. Consistency matters more than perfection during this stage. Many people fail because they expect immediate comfort from positive habits. But growth often feels uncomfortable at first because the brain is adapting to unfamiliar behavior. A person learning discipline may initially feel frustration, boredom, or resistance. This does not mean change is impossible. It simply means the new neural pathway is still developing. Environment influences habits more than many people realize. The brain responds strongly to surroundings, cues, and routines. If unhealthy temptations remain constantly available, old patterns become easier to repeat. If distractions dominate the environment, focus becomes difficult to maintain. Changing your surroundings can support habit development significantly. A person trying to read more should place books where they are easily visible. Someone trying to reduce phone usage should remove unnecessary digital temptation during important work periods. A person building healthier eating habits should organize their environment to support better choices. Simple environmental adjustments reduce resistance and make disciplined behavior easier to repeat. Emotions also play a major role in habit formation. Many habits exist not because they are useful, but because they provide temporary emotional relief. People scroll endlessly to escape boredom. They overeat to soothe stress. They procrastinate to avoid discomfort. The brain remembers behaviors that reduce emotional tension temporarily and encourages repeating them later. This is why lasting change requires emotional awareness as well as behavioral effort. If you do not understand what emotional need a habit is serving, you may continue returning to it automatically. Ask yourself what feeling appears before unhealthy behavior begins. Are you anxious, lonely, frustrated, exhausted, or uncertain? Awareness helps break unconscious patterns. Reward also strengthens neural pathways. The brain pays close attention to actions connected with pleasure, satisfaction, or relief. This is why celebrating small progress matters. Recognizing disciplined behavior gives the brain positive reinforcement. Acknowledge your consistency honestly. Small victories create momentum for larger growth. Identity influences habits deeply too. Many people try to change behavior while still holding limiting beliefs about themselves internally. Someone may attempt disciplined routines while secretly believing they are lazy. Another person may want confidence while constantly identifying as weak. The brain follows repeated self-perception strongly. Instead of focusing only on outcomes, focus on becoming the type of person who practices certain behaviors consistently. A disciplined person trains daily even without perfect motivation. A focused person protects attention carefully. A calm person practices emotional control during stress. Identity-based habits become stronger because behavior aligns with self-image. Patience remains one of the most important parts of neural change. Strong pathways built over years do not disappear instantly. There will be moments when old habits return automatically, especially during stress fatigue or emotional pressure. Many people become discouraged during these moments and believe they have failed completely. But temporary setbacks do not erase progress. The brain changes through repetition over time, not flawless performance. Each return to disciplined behavior strengthens the new pathway again. Consistency after mistakes matters more than emotional self-punishment. Growth requires persistence, not perfection. Morning routines can influence mental patterns powerfully because the brain becomes highly receptive after waking. Beginning the day with purposeful action creates momentum for stronger habits. A calm morning with movement, reflection, learning, or preparation strengthens intentional living. A chaotic, distracted morning often creates mental disorder for the rest of the day. Evening habits matter too. The brain processes experiences and emotions during sleep. Ending the day with endless stimulation, stress, or negativity affects mental recovery. Quiet reflection, reading, gratitude, or peaceful routines support healthier mental conditioning before rest. The people around you also shape neural patterns. Human beings naturally imitate emotional tones, behaviors, and attitudes from their environment. Spending time around disciplined, thoughtful people encourages growth. Constant exposure to negativity, distraction, and irresponsibility weakens positive habit development gradually. Technology has created unique challenges for habit formation because modern systems are designed to capture attention continuously. Instant rewards, endless scrolling, and constant stimulation train the brain toward impatience and short attention spans. Many people struggle with discipline because their minds have been conditioned to expect constant entertainment. Protecting your habits requires intentional boundaries. Not every impulse deserves attention. Not every craving should control behavior. Strong neural pathways are built when you repeatedly choose long-term growth over short-term comfort. Reflection strengthens habit awareness. Spend time examining your daily patterns honestly. Which actions move your life forward? Which behaviors repeatedly drain your energy, focus, confidence, or peace? Many people live automatically for years without ever analyzing the routines shaping their future. Small repeated choices create identity over time. A person does not suddenly become disciplined, confident, or resilient overnight. These qualities emerge through repeated actions practiced consistently across months and years. Your habits are not separate from your character. They are building your character daily. The mind responds to structure. Creating routines removes unnecessary decision fatigue because the brain learns what to expect. Regular schedules for sleep, work, exercise, learning, and recovery create mental stability. Stability supports stronger habits because behavior becomes less dependent on emotional mood. One powerful strategy is reducing the gap between intention and action. Many people think endlessly about improvement without beginning. The brain strengthens through action, not planning alone. Start before you feel completely ready. A small beginning repeated consistently becomes stronger than perfect intentions never practiced. There is great freedom in understanding how neural pathways develop, because it removes the illusion that people are permanently trapped by old patterns. Change becomes possible through repetition, awareness, and discipline. The brain adapts according to what you repeatedly practice. If you repeat distraction, your focus weakens. If you repeat discipline, your self-control strengthens. If you repeat negative thinking, hopelessness grows. If you repeat gratitude, patience, and responsibility, those qualities become more natural over time. Every day, your habits are either reinforcing your current life or reshaping your future. The brain is always learning from repetition. Teach it carefully through the choices you make consistently. Your habits become your routines. Your routines shape your mindset. Your mindset influences your decisions, and your decisions determine the direction of your life. Chapter 8. Sharpen critical thinking through observation, reflection, and logical analysis. The quality of a person's life is heavily influenced by the quality of their thinking. Every decision, relationship, belief, and action begins inside the mind first. A person who thinks clearly usually makes wiser choices, handles problems more effectively, and avoids unnecessary confusion. A person who thinks carelessly often becomes trapped by emotional reactions, false assumptions, and poor judgment. This is why critical thinking is one of the most valuable skills a human being can develop. Many people move through life reacting quickly without examining situations deeply. They accept information without questioning it. They follow emotions without analyzing consequences. They repeat opinions they have never truly studied. This creates weak thinking, and weak thinking creates unnecessary suffering. A disciplined mind learns to slow down, observe carefully, and think with greater clarity before reaching conclusions. Critical thinking begins with observation. Most people look at the world without truly seeing it. Their minds are distracted by noise, assumptions, and emotional impulses. They notice only what confirms their existing beliefs while ignoring important details. Observation requires presence. It means paying close attention to patterns, behaviors, situations, and outcomes, without rushing to immediate judgment. A person with strong observation skills notices how people behave under pressure. They recognize repeated habits in themselves and others. They pay attention to how decisions create results over time. They notice emotional shifts during conversations. They observe not only words but tone, body language, and actions. Careful observation reveals truths that impulsive thinking often misses. The brain naturally searches for quick answers because certainty feels comfortable. But quick conclusions are often incomplete. A thoughtful person becomes willing to pause before deciding what something truly means. Instead of immediately assuming they understand a situation, they ask deeper questions. What facts are missing? What assumptions might be influencing perception? What evidence supports this conclusion? This process strengthens clarity and reduces emotional distortion. Reflection is another essential part of strong thinking. Reflection allows the mind to process experiences more deeply, instead of moving through life unconsciously. Many people repeat the same mistakes because they never examine their actions honestly. They react impulsively, then continue forward without learning anything meaningful from the experience. A reflective person studies their own behavior carefully. After conflict, they ask themselves whether their response improved the situation or worsened it. After failure, they search for lessons instead of only blaming circumstances. After success, they examine what habits created positive results. Reflection transforms ordinary experiences into wisdom because it forces the mind to learn deliberately. Silence supports reflection because constant noise prevents deep thinking. Many people fear quiet moments because silence exposes unresolved thoughts, emotions, and confusion. They fill every empty moment with distraction. But critical thinking requires mental space. A crowded mind struggles to analyze clearly because it never slows down enough to examine reality carefully. Journaling can strengthen reflection powerfully. Writing thoughts on paper forces the mind to organize ideas more clearly. Many people discover contradictions in their thinking only after writing honestly. Journaling also reveals repeated emotional patterns, fears, and habits that may otherwise remain hidden. The process helps transform vague mental confusion into clearer understanding. Logical analysis is equally important because emotions alone often distort judgment. Human beings naturally experience fear, anger, pride, insecurity, and excitement. These emotions influence thinking constantly. A person who feels offended may assume someone intended disrespect without real evidence. A fearful mind may exaggerate danger. An excited mind may ignore important risks. Logic helps balance emotional reactions by examining reality more carefully. This does not mean emotions should be ignored completely. Emotions provide useful signals about needs, concerns, and values. But emotions become dangerous when they replace reasoning entirely. Wise thinking combines emotional awareness with logical examination. A mature mind asks whether feelings accurately reflect the situation instead of blindly trusting every emotional impulse. One useful practice is separating facts from interpretations. Facts are what actually happened. Interpretations are the meaning the mind attaches to those events. Many people confuse the two. A delayed response becomes proof of rejection. A disagreement becomes personal attack. A setback becomes evidence of permanent failure. The mind often creates emotional stories around incomplete information. Critical thinkers examine interpretations carefully before accepting them as truth. They search for alternative explanations. They recognize that perception can become distorted by stress, fear, or personal bias. This habit protects the mind from unnecessary emotional suffering and poor decisions. Bias exists inside every human mind. People naturally prefer information that supports existing beliefs while resisting ideas that challenge them. This tendency can create intellectual blindness. Strong thinkers become willing to question even their own assumptions. They value truth more than ego. They understand that being wrong sometimes is part of learning and growth. Humility strengthens critical thinking because arrogance prevents learning. A person convinced they already know everything stops observing carefully. They stop listening openly. They reject correction automatically. Intellectual humility allows growth because it keeps the mind flexible and curious. Modern life creates serious challenges for clear thinking. Endless information flows constantly through screens, conversations, and media. Many people consume opinions all day without verifying facts or analyzing evidence. Emotional headlines, sensational content, and shallow arguments train the brain toward reactive thinking instead of thoughtful reasoning. Protecting your mind from mental manipulation requires discipline. Do not believe something simply because many people repeat it. Do not accept claims based only on emotion, popularity, or fear. Examine sources carefully. Ask whether evidence supports the conclusion. Learn to distinguish between facts, assumptions, and emotional persuasion. Patience improves reasoning because rushed decisions often ignore important details. Some people feel uncomfortable with uncertainty and rush toward conclusions too quickly. But thoughtful analysis requires time. Complex situations rarely have simple, instant answers. A calm mind remains willing to gather information, observe patterns, and think carefully before deciding. Critical thinking also improves relationships. Many conflicts happen because people assume intentions without asking questions or listening carefully. A disciplined thinker avoids immediate judgment. They seek understanding before reaction. They recognize that misunderstanding often causes unnecessary emotional tension. Listening is one of the most underrated forms of intelligence. Most people listen only long enough to prepare their next response. They focus more on defending themselves than understanding another perspective. Deep listening reveals information that careless conversation misses. It also strengthens empathy because it allows you to see beyond your own assumptions. Reading thoughtfully can sharpen reasoning as well. A disciplined reader does not simply consume words quickly. They examine arguments, question ideas, compare perspectives, and reflect on meaning. Reading expands mental flexibility because it exposes the brain to different ways of thinking. But passive reading alone is not enough. The mind must engage actively with ideas to strengthen critical thought. Curiosity fuels intellectual growth. A curious mind asks why things happen instead of blindly accepting appearances. It searches for deeper understanding rather than surface-level explanation. Curiosity keeps the brain mentally alive because it encourages exploration, learning, and thoughtful questioning. Fear can weaken thinking significantly. When people feel threatened emotionally, they often stop reasoning clearly. Fear narrows perspective and increases impulsive judgment. This is why calmness matters during difficult moments. A calm mind can examine situations more objectively, while a panicked mind exaggerates danger and confusion. Stress, fatigue, and emotional overload also reduce reasoning ability. Exhausted minds struggle to analyze carefully because mental energy becomes depleted. This is another reason why physical and emotional health matter for intellectual clarity. Rested minds think more effectively than overwhelmed ones. Another important habit is considering long-term consequences instead of focusing only on immediate feelings. Many poor decisions happen because people chase short-term relief without examining future impact. Critical thinking requires seeing beyond the present moment. It asks not only what feels good now, but also what creates future stability, growth, and peace. Strong thinkers also recognize patterns over time. They study cause and effect carefully. They notice how repeated habits influence outcomes. They understand that small decisions made consistently shape future results. This awareness helps prevent self-destructive behavior because actions are examined through a wider perspective. Mental discipline requires resisting emotional extremes. During moments of excitement, people may ignore risk. During moments of sadness, they may ignore hope. Balanced thinking avoids both exaggeration and despair. It seeks reality rather than emotional distortion. There is also wisdom in admitting uncertainty when answers are unclear. Many people pretend confidence because uncertainty feels uncomfortable, but false certainty often leads to poor judgment. Honest thinkers recognize when more learning, observation, or reflection is necessary. This honesty protects them from careless conclusions. Critical thinking strengthens personal freedom because it reduces manipulation. A person who examines information carefully becomes harder to deceive emotionally. They stop reacting blindly to fear, pressure, and external influence. They make decisions based on thoughtful analysis instead of impulse or social pressure. The mind becomes sharper through consistent practice. Observation strengthens awareness. Reflection strengthens wisdom. Logical analysis strengthens judgment. These skills grow over time when exercised regularly. Just as physical muscles become stronger through repeated training, the mind becomes clearer through disciplined thought. Every day provides opportunities to strengthen reasoning. Observe your reactions carefully. Question assumptions. Reflect on decisions honestly. Slow down before reaching conclusions. Examine evidence before accepting beliefs. Listen deeply during conversations. Remain open to learning even when correction feels uncomfortable. A person who develops strong critical thinking gains enormous inner stability. They become less controlled by emotional chaos, social pressure, and impulsive judgment. Their decisions become wiser because they are grounded in clarity rather than confusion. The world will always contain noise, misinformation, emotional manipulation, and distraction. But a disciplined mind can remain thoughtful, steady, and clear despite external pressure. This ability creates confidence because you no longer depend entirely on outside opinions to guide your understanding. Your thoughts shape your actions. Your actions shape your habits. Your habits shape your future. Strengthening the way you think strengthens every part of your life. Chapter 9. Develop emotional intelligence by listening carefully and responding thoughtfully. Emotional intelligence is one of the most important abilities a person can develop because it affects every relationship, conversation, decision, and conflict in life. Many people spend years improving external skills while neglecting the way they communicate, understand emotions, and respond to others. They may become knowledgeable, successful, or hard-working, yet still struggle deeply in personal relationships because they lack emotional awareness. Intelligence alone does not create wisdom in human connection. A person can think sharply and still hurt others through careless words, impulsive reactions, or failure to listen. Human beings constantly communicate emotions, even when no words are spoken. Tone, facial expression, silence, body language, and energy all carry emotional meaning. A person may say they are fine, while their voice reveals exhaustion, sadness, or frustration. Someone may smile, while internally feeling anxious or disconnected. Emotional intelligence allows you to notice these signals carefully, instead of reacting only to surface-level communication. Listening is one of the strongest forms of emotional respect. Most people hear words without truly paying attention to the person speaking. Their minds remain focused on preparing responses, defending opinions, or waiting for their turn to talk. Real listening requires presence. It means giving full attention without immediately interrupting, judging, or redirecting the conversation toward yourself. People often reveal more through careful listening than through direct explanation. Their pauses, changes in tone, emotional reactions, and repeated concerns provide insight into what they are truly experiencing internally. A person with emotional intelligence notices these details and responds with greater awareness. Many conflicts happen not because people disagree, but because they feel unheard, misunderstood, or dismissed. When someone shares pain, frustration, or fear, they are often seeking understanding before advice. But many people respond too quickly with solutions, criticism, or comparison. They rush to fix the situation without fully understanding the emotion behind it. A thoughtful response begins with patience. Sometimes, the most valuable thing you can offer another person is calm attention. Listening carefully creates emotional safety because it communicates respect. It tells the other person that their thoughts, feelings, and experiences matter enough to be fully heard. This does not mean agreeing with everything someone says. Emotional intelligence is not blind agreement or emotional weakness. It is the ability to understand emotions clearly while still thinking wisely and responding with balance. A mature person can disagree respectfully without becoming cruel, defensive, or emotionally explosive. Self-awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence because you cannot understand others clearly while remaining blind to your own emotional patterns. Many people react impulsively during conversations because they are controlled by insecurity, pride, fear, or anger without recognizing it. A small criticism triggers defensiveness. Disagreement feels like personal rejection. Stress creates impatience. Without awareness, these reactions damage communication quickly. Pay attention to your emotional habits during conversations. Notice whether you interrupt frequently. Observe whether you become defensive when corrected. Watch how your tone changes during disagreement. Awareness creates the possibility for growth because it exposes behaviors that may otherwise continue automatically. Thoughtful communication requires emotional control. Strong feelings often tempt people to speak carelessly. Anger encourages harsh words. Frustration creates impatience. Pride encourages arrogance. But emotional reactions spoken impulsively can create damage that lasts far longer than the moment itself. Wise people learn to pause before responding emotionally. Silence can sometimes be more powerful than immediate reaction. Taking a moment to breathe, think, and calm your emotions prevents unnecessary harm. A thoughtful response considers both truth and impact. It asks not only whether something is accurate, but also whether it should be expressed in that particular way, at that particular moment. Empathy plays a major role in emotional intelligence. Empathy means attempting to understand another person's emotional experience without immediately making it about yourself. Many people struggle with empathy because they listen only through the lens of their own experiences, opinions, and emotions. But understanding another human being requires stepping outside your own perspective temporarily. This skill becomes especially important during conflict. It is easy to understand people when emotions are calm and agreement exists. True emotional maturity appears during disagreement, disappointment, and misunderstanding. A disciplined mind remains willing to listen even when emotions become uncomfortable. Many people react emotionally because they assume harmful intentions too quickly. They interpret mistakes as attacks. They assume disrespect without clarification. Emotional intelligence encourages curiosity before judgment. Instead of reacting, immediately ask questions. Seek understanding. Clarify meaning. Misunderstanding often creates unnecessary emotional pain. The way you respond to others also shapes the emotional environment around you. Calm, thoughtful communication encourages openness. Aggressive, impatient communication creates fear, tension, and defensiveness. People naturally feel safer around emotionally balanced individuals because their presence feels steady and respectful. Your tone matters as much as your words. The same sentence can create comfort or pain depending on how it is delivered. A calm, respectful voice communicates emotional stability, while harsh tones create emotional distance quickly. Emotional intelligence requires awareness, not only of what you say, but how you say it. Another important part of emotional maturity is recognizing that not every emotion requires immediate expression. Some people believe honesty means expressing every feeling instantly without restraint. But emotional discipline matters. Temporary anger, frustration, or hurt should not automatically control behavior. Reflect before reacting. Consider consequences. Choose responses intentionally instead of emotionally exploding. Boundaries are also part of emotional intelligence. Listening carefully does not mean allowing manipulation, disrespect, or emotional abuse. Thoughtful people understand the difference between compassion and self-neglect. You can care about others while still protecting your own emotional well-being. Emotional intelligence also improves leadership, trust, and cooperation. People naturally respect individuals who remain calm during pressure and communicate clearly during difficulty. Emotional steadiness creates confidence because it demonstrates self-control. A person who listens carefully and responds wisely becomes someone others feel safe approaching. Humility strengthens communication because it reduces the need to dominate conversations constantly. Some people listen only to prove themselves right. Others interrupt because silence makes them uncomfortable. Humble people understand that learning often requires listening more than speaking. Apologizing sincerely is another sign of emotional maturity. Many people resist admitting mistakes because pride feels threatened. But refusing accountability damages relationships deeply. A thoughtful apology shows strength because it values truth and repair over ego protection. Emotional intelligence accepts responsibility honestly without endless excuses. Compassion does not require weakness. You can remain firm while still being respectful. You can speak truthfully without cruelty. You can disagree without humiliation. Emotional intelligence balances honesty with wisdom. It avoids both emotional suppression and emotional chaos. Your relationship with yourself influences how you treat others. A person filled with inner anger, insecurity, or unresolved pain often projects those emotions into conversations unconsciously. This is why self-reflection matters. Healing your own emotional patterns improves your interactions naturally, because you stop carrying as much unresolved tension into relationships. Patience improves emotional understanding because people rarely reveal their full thoughts immediately. Some individuals need time before opening emotionally. Rushing conversations or demanding instant vulnerability often creates pressure instead of trust. Emotional connection grows gradually through consistency, respect, and genuine attention. Technology has weakened communication quality in many ways. People often interact while distracted by screens, notifications, and divided attention. Conversations become shallow because minds remain elsewhere. True listening requires presence, looking someone in the eyes, paying attention fully, and responding thoughtfully creates stronger human connection than constant distracted interaction. Emotional intelligence also means recognizing when someone needs encouragement rather than criticism. Some people carry invisible burdens quietly. A kind word, patience, or understanding response may affect them more deeply than you realize. Human beings remember how others made them feel, especially during difficult seasons. At the same time, emotional wisdom includes recognizing manipulation, dishonesty, and unhealthy behavior. Compassion should not remove discernment. A thoughtful person remains kind without becoming naive. Emotional awareness helps you recognize patterns clearly while still responding with calmness and dignity. There is great strength in staying composed during emotionally charged situations. When others become reactive, your calmness creates stability. This does not mean suppressing feelings completely. It means remaining grounded enough to think clearly while emotions exist. Emotional intelligence transforms difficult conversations because it prevents unnecessary escalation. Your words carry weight. Conversations can heal or damage, encourage or discourage, strengthen or weaken relationships. Many people underestimate how deeply their communication affects others. Careless comments, impatient reactions, and dismissive behavior can leave lasting emotional impact. Thoughtful communication creates trust because it reflects awareness and respect. Developing emotional intelligence takes practice because old habits often return during stress. You may still react emotionally sometimes. You may still misunderstand people occasionally. Growth happens when awareness increases and recovery becomes faster. Instead of remaining trapped inside defensive patterns, you begin correcting yourself more quickly. Observe your interactions honestly. Notice how people respond to your presence, tone, and communication style. Reflect on moments where conversations could have been handled more wisely. Improvement begins through awareness, followed by intentional change. Listening carefully strengthens understanding. Responding thoughtfully strengthens trust. Emotional intelligence strengthens every area of life because relationships influence mental health, peace, opportunity, and emotional fulfillment deeply. A person who understands emotions clearly becomes more patient, compassionate, and steady. They stop reacting blindly to every feeling. They learn how to communicate with wisdom instead of impulse. They create stronger relationships because others feel respected, safe, and understood around them. The world already contains enough noise, impatience, and emotional carelessness. Becoming someone who listens deeply and responds with calm intelligence brings something valuable into the lives of others. And in the process, it strengthens your own mind, character, and inner peace as well. Chapter 10. Transform your life by mastering how your mind truly works. Your life changes the moment you begin understanding that the mind is not just a place where thoughts appear randomly. It is the control center behind your actions, habits, emotions, decisions, relationships, and future direction. Every result in your life is influenced by the way your mind has been trained to think, respond, and behave over time. Many people spend years trying to change external circumstances while ignoring the internal patterns shaping those circumstances every day. They search endlessly for motivation, success, peace, confidence, and clarity without realizing that lasting transformation begins inside the mind first. The human brain constantly adapts to repetition. Whatever you repeatedly think, feel, practice, and focus on becomes stronger. This means your daily mental habits are shaping your future whether you notice it or not. A person who feeds fear daily strengthens anxiety. A person who practices discipline strengthens self-control. Someone who constantly complains trains the mind to focus on negativity. Another person who practices gratitude, patience, and responsibility develops emotional resilience gradually. Most people never intentionally train their minds. They live reactively instead of consciously. Their emotions control decisions. Their habits develop accidentally. Their attention becomes scattered by distractions. Their thoughts are influenced by outside opinions, fears, and social pressure. Over time, this lack of awareness creates confusion, emotional exhaustion, and a feeling of being disconnected from purpose. Transformation begins when you stop living mentally asleep. Awareness changes everything. The moment you begin observing your thoughts, behaviors, emotional patterns, and habits, honestly, you gain the ability to change them. You stop identifying completely with every impulse, emotion, or fear. You begin recognizing that the mind can be directed, trained, and disciplined intentionally. The brain does not instantly distinguish between healthy and unhealthy patterns. It strengthens whatever receives repetition. This is why many destructive behaviors become automatic over time. Constant worry creates stronger anxiety pathways. Repeated anger strengthens emotional reactivity. Endless distraction weakens focus. Self-criticism damages confidence gradually. The brain simply adapts to what it practices most often, but this same process also creates hope. The mind can build stronger patterns through conscious repetition. Calmness can be trained, focus can improve, discipline can develop, emotional stability can grow, confidence can strengthen. Mental transformation is possible because the brain remains adaptable throughout life. One of the most powerful realizations is that thoughts influence behavior far more than most people understand. Your internal dialogue shapes how you see yourself and the world around you. A person who constantly says they are incapable will eventually avoid difficult opportunities. Someone who repeatedly believes change is impossible will stop making effort. Thoughts repeated often enough begin influencing identity. This is why protecting your inner language matters deeply. The way you speak to yourself during failure, stress, and uncertainty affects mental strength. A disciplined mind does not deny difficulty, but it refuses to feed hopelessness constantly. It responds to setbacks with learning rather than surrender. It speaks with honesty and resilience instead of permanent self-defeat. Mastering your mind also requires understanding emotional patterns. Emotions are not enemies, but they should not become unquestioned leaders either. Fear, anger, sadness, excitement, and insecurity all influence thinking. Without awareness, these emotions begin controlling behavior automatically. A fearful person avoids growth. An angry person damages relationships impulsively. An insecure person seeks constant validation. Emotional intelligence grows when awareness becomes stronger than impulse. The ability to pause before reacting is one of the clearest signs of mental mastery. Most people react immediately because they never learned to observe emotions calmly. A disciplined mind creates space between feeling and action. That space allows wisdom to guide behavior instead of temporary emotion. Focus is another major part of mental transformation. Modern life trains the brain toward distraction constantly. Endless notifications, entertainment, and information weaken attention spans and mental clarity. Many people struggle to think deeply because their minds have become addicted to stimulation. A distracted mind struggles to create meaningful progress because energy becomes scattered everywhere. Protecting your attention is protecting your future. Deep focus strengthens learning, creativity, productivity, and emotional stability. A focused person finishes important work more effectively because the brain is not constantly interrupted. Concentration also creates calmness because the mind stops jumping endlessly between thoughts and distractions. Habits shape identity more than occasional motivation ever will. Many people wait to feel inspired before taking action, but consistent routines create lasting change. The brain learns through repetition. Small disciplined actions practiced daily become stronger neural pathways over time. A person becomes healthier through repeated healthy choices. Confidence grows through repeated courageous behavior. Self-respect develops through repeated integrity and discipline. Transformation often feels slow because the mind changes gradually. Many people quit too early because they expect instant results. But deep change happens quietly before visible outcomes appear. A person who practices emotional control daily may not notice dramatic improvement immediately, but over time their reactions become calmer and wiser. Someone building focus may struggle initially, but consistent practice strengthens mental endurance slowly. Patience is essential because old mental conditioning does not disappear overnight. Years of fear, insecurity, distraction, or self-doubt create strong patterns inside the brain. Those patterns weaken through repeated correction, not through temporary emotional motivation. Every disciplined thought, every healthy habit, and every intentional decision strengthens a new direction gradually. The environment around you influences your mind constantly. People, conversations, media noise, and daily routines all shape mental conditioning. If you surround yourself with negativity, chaos, and distraction, your thinking eventually reflects those influences. If you spend time around thoughtful, disciplined, emotionally stable people, your mind begins adapting differently. Protecting your mental environment is an act of wisdom. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every source of information improves your thinking. Some environments drain emotional energy and weaken clarity. Others support peace, growth, and discipline. Choose carefully what enters your mind daily, because repeated exposure shapes thought patterns gradually. Your body also affects your mental state deeply. Sleep, movement, nutrition, and rest influence focus, emotional balance, and stress management. Many people attempt mental growth while physically exhausted constantly. A tired brain struggles to think clearly because energy becomes depleted. Taking care of your body supports mental strength because the brain and body work together continuously. Reflection strengthens self-awareness because it allows you to examine your life honestly instead of moving unconsciously from one moment to another. Reflect on your reactions, decisions, habits, and emotional patterns regularly. Ask yourself whether your current behaviors are creating the future you truly want. Honest reflection creates clarity because it exposes what needs correction. Another important truth is that suffering often increases when people resist reality emotionally. Life contains uncertainty, disappointment, pain, and difficulty for everyone. A disciplined mind accepts that challenges are unavoidable while still refusing hopelessness. Acceptance does not mean weakness. It means responding to reality wisely instead of wasting energy fighting what already exists. Mental mastery also requires responsibility. Blaming circumstances, other people, or the past endlessly keeps growth trapped. While painful experiences influence behavior, they do not remove the ability to change gradually. Responsibility gives power back to the individual because it focuses attention on what can still be improved moving forward. Forgiveness matters too. Many people remain emotionally trapped because they constantly replay past mistakes, failures, or pain. The mind cannot move forward clearly while remaining attached to endless resentment and shame. Forgiveness does not erase accountability, but it releases emotional weight that prevents growth. Purpose strengthens mental resilience because the brain handles hardship differently when life feels meaningful. A person connected to values, responsibility, growth, and contribution can endure difficulty with greater strength. Meaning gives direction during uncertain seasons. Human beings become what they repeatedly practice mentally. If you practice distraction, your attention weakens. If you practice calmness, your emotional balance improves. If you practice discipline, your self-control grows stronger. If you practice negative thinking, hopelessness deepens. The mind is always adapting according to repeated experience. This understanding changes how you view personal growth completely. You stop waiting for external rescue and begin training yourself intentionally. You realize that transformation is not built through occasional inspiration, but through daily mental conditioning. There will still be difficult days. There will still be moments of doubt, stress, fatigue, and emotional struggle. Mastering the mind does not mean becoming emotionless, perfect, or invincible. It means becoming more aware, disciplined, and intentional over time. You recover faster from setbacks. You respond more wisely during pressure. You stop allowing every temporary feeling to control your direction completely. Real strength is often quiet. It appears in consistent habits, thoughtful decisions, emotional restraint, focused attention, and personal responsibility. A strong mind remains steady during uncertainty because it has been trained through practice, not comfort. The way you think determines the way you act. The way you act shapes your habits shape your character, and your character influences the entire direction of your life. This is why understanding your mind matters so deeply. Everything begins there. Every day your brain is changing according to what you repeat. Every thought, action, emotional reaction, and routine is training your future self quietly. You are always becoming something through repetition. The question is whether that process is happening accidentally or intentionally. You do not need a perfect life to begin transforming your mind. You need awareness, honesty, discipline, and consistency. Small corrections repeated daily eventually create powerful change. Calm thinking strengthens peace. Focused effort strengthens growth. Responsible choices strengthen character. The mind can become your greatest source of suffering when left undisciplined. But when understood, trained, and directed wisely, it becomes one of the most powerful tools for transformation, growth, and inner peace.